Political Café, and this is another episode of the conversation that we ought to have. But today, and I'm excited about this conversation because it's women-centered, it's woman-centered, it's woman empowerment and feminism that we're just talking about. I am so happy to have a young, vibrant young woman, and her name is Tatenda Kombora, but she's identified by Queen Unika. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here. I know you're such a busy young lady, but we want to go straight into our conversation today. Our conversation is looking at women in politics, but from a feminism perspective. So I want you to tell me that you identify yourself as a feminist, and from what does that mean from a Zimbabwean perspective?
Okay, so the premise of feminism is in saying that we want equality between the sexes. That means that we want equality between men and women. So we are looking for equality in three different sectors, or in the three facets of society: in the social part of it, in the economic part of it, and in the political part of it. So it's very important that we understand that in as much as feminism in Zimbabwe, my feminism struggle in Zimbabwe can be different from the one that, say, a person in the States can have. They might be different, but there is always going to be some intersectionality. Because at the end of the day, the premise of feminism is saying that we want women to be recognized as full human beings that are sexual beings, human beings that are emotional beings, human beings that are intellectual beings, the same way that men are. But in a Zimbabwean context, we realize that the struggle can be saying that we want gender equality. Take, for instance, in the economic sector, we might be saying that we want gender equality. But with Zimbabwe, the conversation is different, because at the end of the day, we don't even have enough women that are in the workspaces. We don't even have women that are in the education sector in terms of women that are able to acquire tertiary education. So our conversation then becomes different in the sense that we realize that our struggles as Zimbabwean women, and most importantly as Zimbabwean feminists, are a little bit different from the others. But at the end of the day, the most important is to realize that the call is the same. We want women in parliament, we want women in council, we want women in leadership spaces, because that's what feminism calls for. But more importantly, because we as women are also human beings, we deserve to be in those spaces, and it is time that the rest of the world begin to realize that. And if they are afraid of realizing that, the way that our patriarchal society is, we are here as feminists to say that this is the way that we're supposed to go, and if you're not going that way, we're going to fight you until you understand that this is the right direction to face. And so in terms of society, when you look at society in Zimbabwe, we've got at least 22 women that are raped every single day. Mm-hmm. We have at least 20% of women that are in marriages that are beaten by their partners every single day. Mm-hmm. Those are problems that are in Zimbabwe, and those are problems that the ordinary Zimbabwean woman faces. And as a feminist, those are the kind of struggles that we talk about, but that we're also trying to fight.
Wow, you've spoken of a very issue close to what's happening every day. We are fast approaching the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, but I feel that activism against gender-based violence is a 365 thing, it's an everyday thing. Women in politics and violence, these are interlinked. There is so much violence towards women. And as a feminist, what is your core value against women and violence come 2023?
Okay, what we also have to realize is that why there is so much political violence against women that choose to be female politicians. Mm-hmm. I think when we understand the background of the problem, we can therefore look to finding the solutions to the problem. Because how many men have been involved in politics since the start of the political arena? There have been a lot of men politicians. But when we look at the amount of violence that has been perpetrated against them, vis-a-vis that has been perpetrated against women that choose to be in the political sector, there is a lot of difference between the two. When you look at the reason why there is so much violence, the violence is physical, it's sexual, it's verbal. We've seen videos of female politicians getting slaved, or female politicians getting dragged. And on social media, Twitter is such an amazing space to connect, but it has also shown us the amount of violence that is perpetrated against female politicians. They get dragged, they get called names, they get insulted for absolutely no reason at all. And the reason is because
for just existing.
Exactly. And the reason is because you're a woman and you've decided that I want to run for political office, or I'm already running, or I'm in the political space. But because we live in a patriarchal society, men and women believe that this is not a space for women. So because you are a woman that has chosen to go against the norm, we are going to punish you. We're going to make sure that you regret your decision. And if you don't wake up and say, oh my God, I quit, I cannot do this anymore, then we're going to make sure that the rest of your life is a living hell. So we've seen this, it has become a culture. Politics and violence in Zimbabwe, especially against women, has become a culture. And it has therefore deterred a lot of women from running from office. But I'm glad that despite all of that, we still have women that are aspiring for office come 2023. And it is important that we support those women, but more so that we look at the political act in Zimbabwe, and we start putting in place policies and mechanisms that actually make sure we punish perpetrators of such violence. Because we can't keep on. In 2008 we're having this conversation, 2018 we're having this conversation and saying that women have been abused and violated in terms of the political space, but nothing in terms of laws and policies has been done, and the violence keeps on just worsening. So we need to start making sure that the conversations lead to ultimate action, that we can actually hold and say this is the policy that is there to protect women that choose to be in parliament or in politics.
Policies and mechanisms that can curb and protect women in politics, and even women that are out of politics, against any form of violence. You've spoken about the Twitter, which is cyberbullying and things like that. There are a lot of people that are using ghost accounts, and these people are getting away with this type of violence. And you then gave an example, Yokuti. Someone might feel like this is too much and they need to withdraw. But feminism is a fighting spirit.
Yes.
Feminism is, I always say it's a revolutionary spirit. You don't care who said what, when, how. But when you need to go to the vision, you use all means possible. So I want to ask something. We have the quota system in system that we have had since 2018, and then now with the amendment bill number 2, it is now law, and they've extended it. It has even come to cancel the quota system. From a feminist point of view, what do you think about the quota system?
The quota system is, in short, an injustice to women in politics. The reason is, the basis of a quota system is to say that we want women in parliament, we want women in council, we want women in leadership spaces. But we realize that the society that we're coming from doesn't allow for women to be in politics, doesn't allow for women to be in leadership spaces. So because of that, we're going to put those women in parliament with the hope that the rest of society sees that those women are capable enough to lead them. But if you look at the quota system in Zimbabwe, it is in such a way that these women do not have constituencies.
Yeah,
these women are not part of the 210 members of parliament that have constituencies. And that is a major problem. Why? Because Parliament is a space that is meant to represent the rest of Zimbabweans. You are there, and when you speak, you're standing to speak and represent your constituency. But if you don't have a constituency, who are you representing? And we're also saying that we want women to learn the ropes of leadership. We want women to learn what it takes to be an MP, what it takes to be a councillor. But how can they do that if you're not giving them an opportunity to campaign, if you're not giving them an opportunity to be voted for? That is why we see these insults and these male politicians keep on insulting women in parliament. They call them the Bakosi MP, they call them names and they insult them because they say that you didn't work to be here, you were just put to be here. So we need a reform of the quota system. It is a good policy, it is a good act, but we need to change it in such a way that we allow women to be voted for. We allow women to campaign, to compete, and to have their own constituencies. So let's reserve certain constituencies in each and every province just for women. Let women battle it out, and whoever gets the greatest amount of votes will win, because we want them to gain the experience to say that. Let them learn to campaign. Let them learn how to handle issues from their constituencies. Let them learn to speak in front of people and to be able to present their cases. But the current system and the quota system isn't allowing women to do that. I was so heartbroken when I read an article online. There was a certain honorable in Bulawayo, I think it was 2018. She was interviewed and she was part of the quota system. She was saying that for her to actually do initiatives and projects in her constituency, the one that she lives in, she actually has to ask for permission from the male legislator that is in charge of her constituency. And more often than not, the male legislators do not allow them to have these initiatives and these projects because they are saying, you want to take my spotlight, you want to take next year you'll then be campaigning for my seat. So if this is a problem, because we keep on saying that we want women to have power, but we put them in situations whereby they will always go back to ask for power from men. Power is still centered in males in Zimbabwe, especially in the political space. So if you want women to be capable, if we want women to be put in these positions, we need to start looking at the policies and the hypocrisy that some of those policies have and start really shunning them.
Wow, you mentioned something so profoundly of how we were given these seeds and and when you're given these seats, you don't necessarily have a voice in parliament. And remember, they are not given ECDF, Constituent Development Fund, which is money meant to go and develop constituency. So when you're given something on a silver platter, the person that has given you might easily take it away from you.
Sure.
But my issue, Unika, is we have had women that were in parliament from Gudala who saw the opportunity of a quota system. They abandoned what they had been doing, fighting men to go in parliament to say they want the quota system. Is that fair for women, for other women?
And actually, there was a conversation about this on Twitter. There's a certain woman that I follow, and she was saying that next year she's going to be decampaigning any woman who's been a beneficiary of the quota system and wants to get into parliament using the quota system again. And I was saying, I am with you here, because when we say there is a quota system, we want to create women that will be able to say, I don't need the quota system anymore. Let me go and campaign on my own because I've gotten the tools. But if the quota system isn't doing that, if it's not coming together and giving out the results that we needed it to have when we put it into practice, then it has got to be done away with. But we cannot completely blame those women, because as I said, the quota system is really an injustice. Most of those women realize that politics, especially party politics in Zimbabwe, isn't really a fair game, especially even more so when you're a woman. So sometimes they shun away from competing with the men because they know maybe the man that has been put there is the CEO of some small business or a large business, and they know that they don't stand a chance, but then they rush to the quota system. But what I'd like to then say to any woman that is really a senior politician is to say, give other women a chance, or rather mentor them. I've seen there is a certain political party, I won't mention the name obviously, but I've seen how they are mentoring young women. The senior female politicians are mentoring young women to be able to run next year. And some of them have already started campaigning, and it's good to see young blood and young women with new energies and new concepts coming in and doing that. And at the end of the day, sisterhood is really one of the bases of saying that feminism is what it is.
Feminism is based on sisterhood, so sister to sister and uplifting women. But there's a notion, Tatenda, where we are being subjected to saying women are pulling each other down, or women are the ones that don't give other women a chance to prosper, to flourish. What is your perspective on that? Is that true, or this is a narrative of patriarchy that has been set in us and we have started to believe it?
I think that patriarchy is a very clever system. They are cruel, but they are also very clever. And they've been able to not only initiate men in their cult, but they've also been able to initiate a lot of women in their cult. And hence, a lot of women have become gatekeepers. But whenever I look at these women, I look at them more as victims of patriarchy themselves, and not the actual architectures of the system. So we have women that pull other women down. It is true. But remember that this is a person that has grown in a home, in an institution. When you're at home, you're constantly being told the husband, the man is your lord, they are your master, they are more superior than you, and they are the person whose opinions are always right, and the person that you're always supposed to respect. Now when you see another woman try to then compete with the person that you've told to be your master, you then begin to hate this person because this person is trying to compete with someone that you've been taught to respect. I'll give an example of, say, Tariro. You are at home, you respect your mother, you respect your father. Then suddenly the woman next door comes in and starts to insult your mother. What would you do? You would obviously, get there. You're also insulting, trying to defend your mom, because you have so much respect for her and you've grown to respect and respect her opinions, because this woman has done so much for you. And this is the same thing with patriarchy. It has made women to be those people that respect men so much that they are blinded, even when they commit crimes against humanity, when they rape their children, when they kill other women, there will still be women that will be supporting them because they've been taught that it's the right thing to do. You can't speak against a man. You can't go against a man. What kind of a woman will you be? Society will shun you. So those women choose to rather be subservient, to go with the norm and, be silent and do what is expected of them.
To be silent and go what is against what is expected of them. But feminism doesn't teach that. Feminism encourages you to be yourself, to stand up to bullies, actually, to stand up to it does not speak of disrespect. Let's make that clear to people. That feminism, I see feminism is dialogue. Yes. Feminism is conversation. Feminism is ukubonisana. Kuonesana kuti, okay, this is where we want to go. We are not saying ukuthi nxa silwela amalungelo abomama sithi bakithi baba wathi iphenti lami kumba yenze nendlela. We are saying we want the same economic opportunities as you. Yes. So for example, right now you can already see that there's a biasness behind the scenes right now. They are all men on the camera.
Sure.
What we are fighting is at least ngabe kulomfazi oyiwani ngapho njani oyenza sound. That's feminism for me. At least for me, that's it. So when we then speak of feminism, there's a misconception to say kuti feminism what do you say about that?
Okay, there's a very beautiful quote that I recently learned. It says that when you're accustomed to privilege, equality seems like oppression. So what the basis of this is saying that if I am accustomed to say every time I come home and there is a meal ready for me, there is a person ready to kneel down and wash my hands, and the person isn't doing that anymore, that's a privilege, right? And now I'm made to go and cook. Now I'm made maybe to even save the other person. I look at that as oppression. So there have been a lot of negative stereotypes associated with feminism, and the reason is because a lot of men are afraid of the shift in terms of the balance of power, because they've always had the power, they've always had the privileges that come with being a man, and now they're afraid that if these women are standing there and starting to say that I'm also a human being too, you need to respect me too, I also want to be saved the same way that you are saved, then they know that because power has to come from somewhere. So if the power, 80% of the power was yours, but now I'm asking for 50-50, that means that 30% that you had taken, I want it back, and they're afraid of that. But what we need to realize about feminism is, because there are so many stereotypes that demonize feminism, but the basis of feminism is saying that we are equal. You are a human being. I'm also a human being. If you can feel hurt, I can feel hurt. If you can have ambitions for power, I also can have ambitions of power. If you can go to school and earn, I also should be able to do that. If we can look at you and say, Kuti, the moment you cheat, there's this notion in society whenever men cheat, hands items scans, like he's been naughty. But if a woman cheats, it's like that act word is used. That's okay, Kumba. But both these people have done an immoral thing. It's wrong because they've been dishonest to their partners. So let's treat them the same way because what they've done is wrong. So feminism is just saying, treat me as a human being, and that is it. That is all.
That is all. Feminism in politics. This is where we or what we are concentrating on. For young feminists that want to be visible come 2023, that we want to also see as a voice in parliament, in council. And obviously, I know there are our mothers that have walked this path that are also feminists that are in Senate. What would you say about them? So how can they be visible without feeling, without being apologetic because they're feminists?
I like what you're saying, without being apologetic, because so much in the society that we grew up in, women are taught to be apologetic about everything, apologetic about the way we look, about our bodies, about the way you speak. You know, the moment you sit down, sit properly. If you talk a lot, you know, what's that how you say? So at the end of the day, I think that's where it begins. Not being apologetic of who you are. You are a young woman or you are a grown woman and you want to be in politics, you want to be in parliament, you want to be in council. The world should respect that. Do not be apologetic about that. But I also like the fact that we're looking at the visibility of women and not the capability of women, because more often than not, the conversation is always around, are women capable enough? Women are capable enough. Exactly.
So they say.
You know, so now we need to start looking at how they can be visible, because already, you know, in our communities we have community champions, and if you look at a lot of community champions, they are usually women. We have women that have orphanages. We have women that, you know, if there is a problem, if the sewer base, that woman will be the first person to go to council and say the sewage is based,
and the council listens to them.
Exactly. So we've got powerhouses in our communities, and they're already visible, but we need to start harnessing that power. Let's encourage those women to say, you know what, you've been visible in our community for the past 10 years. Why not run for council? Why not run for parliament? And for those that have already decided that they want to run, besides encouragement, we need to get to a point whereby they start reminding the community about who they are, about what they've done. Because if you're a young woman, the thing is usually a lot of people do not know you, but you've done so many things, maybe at school, you've been in leadership, you've done some community projects here and there. So you need to start reminding the community about the things that you've done and start doing the things that you want to do when you get to office. So let them do community projects, let them do initiatives, but above all, it is important that we give them a space to be who they are, to be unapologetic about being women that have ambitions of political office and supporting them. My principle is to say that after capability next year, I'll look at gender. That is to say that a lot of women say that, can we vote for a person just because they are a woman? Yes, I can vote for a person because they are a woman if I've checked the ballot and I've seen that all of these candidates, I do not know any of them and I do not know any of their capabilities. But to see a woman who's on the ballot box, it shows you that a woman has fought so much. Because if a woman is a part of a political party, for them to actually win a primary election, then for them to actually campaign enough to be on that ballot box, that shows you that they are resourceful, that they are powerful, that they are courageous. And such a woman needs to be empowered, needs to be supported. So I'll definitely be voting for those.
All right. Thank you, Onika, for coming today. I know we could have this conversation the whole day, but time is not on our side. For parting words, for feminists that want to be in politics and for young women and youths that want to be in politics, what is your encouragement, your words, so we know what your perspective on political participation?
Okay, so my reasoning is very simple. If we want women in parliament, if we want women in politics, we need to start raising women in politics. And we need to start raising women that believe that it's okay to be a woman with ambitions for political office. But we also need to start raising sons that appreciate those women, that accept those women, so that at the end of the day, these two groups are a force and they do away with patriarchy, because patriarchy has destroyed so many lives and we need to keep on fighting it.
Patriarchy has destroyed a lot of lives, so let's raise our sons, let's raise our daughters to know that they're equal. So in those homes, and if you plan on having families and raising the future, you must know that feminism is not about Wudelela, but feminism is bringing equality to all forms of human beings, regardless of health, gender, race, or whatever they believe in. It's because they want to be in power. So don't shy away from power as we go into 2023 for young people. Thank you so much, Tatenda, for coming today. And this was another episode of the 263 Political Café. Please do follow us on our social medias for more of our episodes. Goodbye. Thanks.